Beneath the quiet surface of our world lies a secret so vast, so mysterious, it defies belief. Entire cities carved into the earth, hidden beneath the very monasteries we associate with peace and prayer. These aren't just tunnels or storage rooms, they're sprawling underground labyrinths, some large enough to house thousands, all built in shadow by hands guided by faith, fear, or something far older. Picture this. You're standing in a sunlit courtyard of an ancient monastery, the air thick with incense, when a hidden door swings open beneath your feet. Stone steps descend into darkness, leading to a world forgotten by time. This isn't the plot of a fantasy novel, it's real history, waiting to be uncovered. For centuries, these subterranean cities served as sanctuaries for monks fleeing persecution, as repositories for sacred texts too dangerous to keep above ground, and perhaps even as gateways to realms we've yet to understand. Some were designed with precision, their corridors echoing with the whispers of prayers long silenced. Others feel almost alive, their walls etched with symbols that hint at knowledge lost to the ages. What drove these communities to build such elaborate refuges beneath their feet? Was it purely survival, or were they guarding something far more profound? The answers lie buried in stone, and today we're pulling back the veil. From the depths of Cappadocia's fairy chimneys to the crypts beneath Europe's most hallowed abbeys, we'll journey through 25 of these hidden wonders, places you were never meant to see. Each one holds a story, a chapel hollowed out by desperate hands, a tunnel system used to smuggle relics to safety, or a chamber where the air itself seems to hum with ancient energy. These aren't just ruins, they're time capsules preserving moments of courage, devotion, and ingenuity. So take a deep breath and step closer to the edge of the unknown. By the end of this journey, you'll never look at a monastery or the ground beneath it the same way again. Descending into Derinkuyu feels like stepping into the pages of an ancient legend, one where stone holds secrets and every shadow whispers of lives once lived in hiding. This underground marvel isn't just a network of caves, it's a meticulously engineered fortress, plunging 18 levels deep into the earth. Imagine the hands that carved these passageways, chiseling away at volcanic rock to create a sanctuary capable of sustaining entire communities for months. The scale is staggering: kitchens with smoke vents disguised as natural fissures, stables for livestock, even wineries where monks pressed grapes in the darkness. But perhaps most striking are the chapels, their ceilings arched like the heavens they could no longer see, where prayers echoed against walls that doubled as barriers against the outside world. What's truly remarkable is how Derinkuyu's design reveals a mastery of survival. Vertical shafts funneled fresh air 70 meters underground, while massive circular stone doors, each weighing half a ton, could seal off entire sections in an instant. Some scholars believe these doors weren't just defenses against armies, but against something more insidious, the spread of disease or even spiritual corruption. And then there are the mysteries that linger. Unexplored tunnels slope downward beyond the mapped levels, their endpoints unknown. Local legends speak of a hidden library, its shelves lined with texts deemed too dangerous for the surface world. Could these tunnels connect to other underground cities rumored to lie beneath Cappadocia? The monks who built Derinkuyu left no blueprints, only clues etched into the rock itself. Yet this city wasn't just about fear, it was about faith. The deeper you go, the more the architecture shifts from practical to profound. Lower levels feature baptismal fonts and altars carved directly into the stone, suggesting these chambers were used for rituals away from prying eyes. Some walls bear symbols that defy interpretation, spirals that might represent spiritual ascent, or crosses entwined with older pagan motifs. It's as if the monks were weaving together strands of belief, creating a tapestry of devotion in the darkness. Derinkuyu reminds us that even in the most desperate times, humanity doesn't just survive, it seeks meaning. And sometimes that meaning is found not in the light, but in the quiet, sacred depths beneath our feet. The air grows heavy with the scent of beeswax and myrrh as you descend into the labyrinth beneath Kieff Petchez Lavra, where the very walls seem to breathe with centuries of devotion. Unlike the defensive tunnels of Derinkuyu, these catacombs were carved not for survival but for spiritual seclusion, a place where monks sought to separate themselves from the world in pursuit of divine connection. But what begins as a simple corridor soon unfolds into something extraordinary, a honeycomb of narrow passages, some so tight you must turn sideways to pass, lined with niches where mummified saints rest in glass-covered coffins. Their hands, darkened by time, are crossed over chests that once held hearts fervent with prayer. Pilgrims have walked these tunnels for nearly 1,000 years, their fingers brushing the walls as they whisper petitions, leaving the stone polished smooth in places like the flank of a well-loved relic. The genius of these catacombs lies in their paradox, how something so confined could feel so vast in spirit. Chambers branch off unexpectedly, revealing tiny chapels where flickering oil lamps illuminate frescoes of saints whose eyes seem to follow you through the gloom. Scholars believe some tunnels were dug in secret during Mongol invasions, their entrances concealed beneath altars or behind iconostases. It's said that during the Soviet era, when faith was suppressed, these passages sheltered forbidden religious gatherings, the faithful memorizing the maze turns to evade capture. But the most enduring mystery swirls around the so-called library cave, rumored to hold priceless medieval manuscripts walled up by monks protecting them from destruction. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed hollow spaces behind certain sections, yet no one has dared disturb the sanctity of these walls to confirm what treasures or warnings might lie sealed within. What truly chills the spine, though, isn't the darkness or the dead. It's the uncanny preservation of the mummies themselves. Scientists still debate how these bodies resisted decay without deliberate embalming. Some attribute it to the cave's stable microclimate. Others whisper of the monks' ascetic diets purifying their flesh from within. But for the faithful, the answer is simple: holiness leaves its mark. The air here thrums with a presence that defies explanation, a hum felt not in the ears but in the ribs, as if the stone itself remembers every psalm ever chanted within it. To walk these tunnels is to tread the fine edge between history and eternity, where time collapses into something sacred and strange. Kieff's underground monks may have sought silence, but their legacy echoes louder than ever in these hallowed halls. Beneath the sun-baked streets of Matera, time folds in on itself like the pages of a forbidden manuscript. The sassy district, with its honey-colored stone dwellings stacked like a child's blocks, is only the surface of a far deeper story. Venture below, and you'll find chapels carved not just into rock, but into defiance itself, sanctuaries where monks risked everything to protect sacred art from the fury of iconoclasm. These aren't mere caves, they're canvases. Faded frescoes of wide-eyed saints and golden-haloed Madonnas cling to the walls, their pigments mixed with the very dust of the earth. In one hidden alcove, a 12th century depiction of the Last Judgment still glows faintly in candlelight, the damned writhing in frescoed flames, as if warning against the destruction raging above ground. The genius of Matera's underground lies in its layers, both literal and symbolic. Some chapels were hollowed out beneath ordinary homes, their entrances concealed behind wooden wardrobes or beneath kitchen flagstones. Others sprawl deeper, connected by tunnels so narrow they force you to crawl, a physical echo of spiritual humility. The most secluded chambers, known as hermit pits, are little more than vertical shafts with footholds carved into the sides. Ascetics would lower themselves into these stone cocoons for weeks at a time, their only company the drip of groundwater and the echoes of their own prayers. Yet even in isolation they left marks, crosses scratched into the walls, niches for oil lamps placed precisely where dawn's first light would strike like a divine signal. What's haunting is how these spaces evolved with each wave of persecution. Early Christian symbols blend with older pagan motifs, a secret language of survival. In the crypt of Original Sin, a vaulted ceiling blooms with vibrant 8th century murals of Eden, the serpent coiled around the tree of knowledge rendered in ochre so rich it looks freshly painted. Scholars believe this chamber doubled as a clandestine classroom where monks taught scripture using art as their text. Later, during the Renaissance, some tunnels were expanded into full-fledged churches, their Baroque altars incongruous against the rough-hewn walls. This adaptability speaks volumes. Faith here wasn't just preserved, it was reinvented generation after generation, like a flame passed between cupped hands in a storm. Today, Matera's underground whispers of resilience. Restoration efforts have revealed frescoes hidden beneath centuries of soot and lime wash, their colors shockingly vivid. Some tunnels still guard secrets. Ground-penetrating radar has detected voids behind walls, possibly containing lost icon fragments or even early liturgical scrolls. But the true marvel isn't just what survives, it's how these spaces still hum with purpose. Modern pilgrims kneel where medieval ones did, tracing the same grooves worn into prayer benches by countless elbows. The air, thick with the scent of damp stone and beeswax, carries an uncanny sense of continuity, as if the walls themselves remember every whispered psalm. Matera proves that sometimes the most sacred spaces aren't those that reach toward heaven, but those that root themselves deep in the earth's quiet embrace. Rising from the tidal flats like a stone mirage, Mont Saint-Michel appears to float between earth and sky, but its true marvels lie beneath the feet of pilgrims climbing its sunlit staircases. Descend past the grand abbey church, and the air shifts from sea breeze to something older, heavier with the weight of centuries. Here, in vaulted crypts built to redistribute the abbey's immense weight, you'll find walls scarred by more than just time. Chisel marks tell of nights when monks worked by torchlight, expanding secret tunnels to withstand the relentless sieges of the 100 Years' War. These weren't mere escape routes, they were lifelines. Hidden channels beneath the causeway allowed boats to slip past blockades under cover of fog, smuggling grain, wine, and even entire flocks of sheep to sustain the besieged community. The most ingenious spaces, though, were the scriptoriums, windowless chambers where quills scratched across vellum by lamplight. While armies clashed above, scribes here perfected the art of illumination, turning rebellion into pigment. Golden-leafed saints glimmered on pages that doubled as acts of quiet defiance, their creation made possible by underground workshops where pigments were ground from smuggled minerals. Some manuscripts bear subtle clues to their origins, a border patterned like tidal ripples or a saint's robe colored with Breton blue, a hue traded through those very tunnels. Even the abbey's architecture whispers of duality. The Merveille, that soaring Gothic masterpiece, rests upon crypts designed to support its spiritual weight both literally and metaphorically. But the tunnels guard darker secrets too. Radar scans have revealed passages branching toward the mainland, their entrances bricked up after the war. Local legends speak of a night in 1442 when the abbot ordered the underground flooded to repel English soldiers, whether by seawater or diverted springs remains unclear. What's certain is that these walls remember desperation. In the Salle des Chevaliers, grooves in the floor mark where a hidden hatch once lowered supplies into the depths, while a forgotten alcove near the cloister still bears charcoal tallies counting siege days. Today, guides point out the Monk's Whisper, a curved underground corridor that carries voices hundreds of feet, likely used to relay warnings. What lingers most isn't the ingenuity, though it's the paradox. This fortress of faith was also a sanctuary of secrecy, where monks hoarded knowledge as zealously as they did wine barrels. Some say the labyrinth's true purpose wasn't hiding from invaders, but preserving something more fragile, the fragile flame of learning in an age of fire and sword. As tides surge around the mount, the stones beneath seem to hum with the echo of 1,000 whispered psalms, and perhaps the rustle of pages still waiting to be found. Beneath Rome's bustling streets, where tourists tread unknowingly over centuries of buried faith, lies a shadow counterpart to the city's grand basilicas, a labyrinth of devotion carved in secrecy. The catacombs beneath San Clement aren't just burial tunnels, they're a palimpsest of belief, layer upon layer of sacred space stacked like pages of a forbidden text. Descend past the 12th century basilica, and you'll find a 4th century church hidden beneath it, then deeper still, a 1st century Mithraic temple, its altar etched with the god slaying the cosmic bull. Here, Christianity didn't erase paganism. It absorbed it, repurposing the very stones where Roman soldiers once worshipped in torchlight. The air in these chambers hangs thick with the weight of transformation, as if the walls themselves remember the moment when crosses quietly replaced crescent moons. What's astonishing is how these spaces evolved to defy persecution. Narrow staircases twist abruptly into dead ends, only to reveal hidden passages when a certain brick is pressed. Frescoes of saints adorn walls that once bore pagan murals, their colors still vibrant in the damp darkness, proof that medieval monks mixed their pigments with egg yolk and resilience. In one chamber, a crude carving of the Good Shepherd overlaps an older depiction of Orpheus, both figures holding lambs in eerily similar poses. This wasn't mere coincidence, it was coded survival. During the darkest years of suppression, worshippers could claim they gathered for harmless pagan rites, while secretly celebrating the Eucharist on altars disguised as Mithraic slabs. The true marvel, though, lies in the uncharted depths. Modern archaeologists using laser scanners have mapped only 30% of these tunnels, uncovering anomalies that defy explanation. Behind a collapsed passage near San Callisto, ground-penetrating radar reveals a circular chamber lined with lead, possibly a clandestine baptistery for converts. Elsewhere, thermal imaging shows voids where air currents suggest connections to Rome's lost underground rivers. Most tantalizing are the whispers of the library crypt, a rumored chamber mentioned in 9th century scrolls, said to house Gnostic gospels deemed too radical for the Vatican's archives. Yet these catacombs weren't just hideouts, they were living theology. The deeper you go, the more the architecture speaks in metaphor. Ceilings arch like upturned ships' hulls, echoing early Christian symbols of the church as a vessel navigating stormy seas. Passages narrow dramatically before opening into chapels, a physical enactment of Matthew's straight gate. Even the graffiti tells stories, crosses scratched by trembling hands, Greek letters spelling ichthyes, fish, as covert identifiers, and in one heart-wrenching instance, a child's footprint preserved in mortar beside the words, Lucilla, vivas in Dio, Lucilla, may you live in God. Today, restoration work continues to peel back layers of history. ultraviolet light recently revealed a 3rd century fresco of the Virgin Mary nursing the infant Jesus, older than any known Marian image in Rome's above-ground churches. Meanwhile, monks from the adjacent monastery still guard certain tunnels, their keys passed down through generations like sacred trust. Walking these passages, you realize the greatest secret these walls hold isn't lost treasure or heresy, but the quiet truth that faith, when pressed into darkness, doesn't diminish, it digs deeper, roots itself in stone, and waits for the light to return. In the highlands of Ethiopia, where the air tastes of incense and ancient dust, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela rise like miracles from the earth, but their true wonder lies beneath. These 11 sacred structures, carved downward into living rock in the 12th century, are merely the visible pinnacle of a subterranean spiritual realm few outsiders ever glimpse. Descend through a narrow cleft near Petchez, and the sunlight fades to reveal a honeycomb of tunnels so precise in their geometry, they seem less dug by human hands than revealed by divine will. Monks call these passages the veins of Zion, threading darkness with a purpose both practical and mystical. Some corridors run arrow straight for hundreds of feet, connecting churches like beads on a rosary. Others twist abruptly into dead ends or spiral staircases, leading to chambers where hermits once chiseled prayer niches into the walls. The genius of Lalibela's underground lies in its sacred deception. Certain tunnels slope imperceptibly downward, designed to disorient invaders with subtle changes in air pressure and echoes. Trapdoors hidden beneath woven prayer mats open into cisterns that once stored years' worth of holy water. One particularly cunning passage near Petchez forks 3 ways. 2 routes end abruptly at blank walls, while the third continues only if you know to feel for a depression in the ceiling that unlocks a pivoting stone block. Local tradition claims these defenses thwarted 14th century jihadist armies, though archaeologists suspect they also protected against treasure hunters seeking the church's legendary gold processional crosses. What's extraordinary is how these spaces remain vibrantly alive. In a chamber beneath Petchez, flickering oil lamps reveal fresh scrape marks where modern monks still sharpen their reed pens against the same stone ledges used by scribes 8 centuries prior. The air hums with murmured jazz chants from solitary figures wrapped in white gabis, their voices weaving through tunnels that amplify sound in uncanny ways. Some acoustically perfect niches are believed to have been designed for specific prayers. A low vault near Petchez resonates deeply when chanting Psalm 91, the Song of Protection. But the deepest mystery lurks beneath Petchez, the largest monolithic church. Here, a descending corridor dubbed the Path of Angels terminates at an iron-bound door opened only during Timkat, Ethiopia's Epiphany celebration. Those who have glimpsed inside speak of a circular chamber where 12 stone pillars mirror the church's above-ground columns, their bases worn smooth by generations of bare feet. Some say this was King Lalibela's private chapel. Others whisper it holds replicas of the Ark of the Covenant used in clandestine ceremonies when Axum's original was threatened. The truth may never be fully known. The monks who guard these secrets pass knowledge orally, leaving no maps for historians to decipher. Walking these tunnels today, you're struck not by their age but by their continuity. The same handholds polished smooth by medieval monks now guide the fingers of novices. Ink stains from 6th century manuscripts still tint the mortar of scribble alcoves. Even the darkness feels intentional, not an absence of light, but a sacred space where faith becomes tactile. Lalibela's underground isn't a relic, it's a living bloodstream, pulsing with prayers that have never ceased echoing through the stone. The cliffs of Mount Athos don't just rise from the Aegean, they breathe with hidden life. Carved into these sheer rock faces are cells so small, so isolated, they blur the line between solitude and sanctity. Picture a space no wider than a monk's outstretched arms, where the only entrance is a rope ladder swaying over a 300-foot drop. These aren't mere caves, they're crucibles of devotion, worn smooth by generations of hermits who traded sunlight for something they believed far brighter: unbroken communion with the divine. The most remote cells, like those near Carulia, cling to cliffs like swallows' nests. To reach them, monks once braved hemp ropes frayed by salt wind, hauling supplies in baskets woven from wild olive branches. Inside, the walls tell silent stories: crosses etched with fingernails, soot-blackened niches where oil lamps burned year after year, and in one cell, a groove worn into the floor from decades of kneeling. What's astonishing isn't just the austerity, but the ingenuity. Tiny funnel systems carved into the rock collected morning dew for drinking water, while vertical shafts channeled sunlight for precisely 20 minutes at dawn, creating a natural sundial for prayer. Legends cling to these caves like the lichen on their walls. There's the tale of Saint Maximos the Capsacalavite, who allegedly survived 60 years in total darkness, his only nourishment being communion bread lowered weekly by basket. Others speak of the luminous elder, a hermit whose cell reportedly glowed at night, a phenomenon pilgrims attributed to divine presence, though chemists now suspect it was bioluminescent fungi cultivated for reading sacred texts. The most enduring mystery swirls around the so-called Chamber of Tears, a cave where the walls weep condensation in a peculiar pattern resembling faces. Monks claim it's where ascetics confronted their darkest temptations, their spiritual struggles literally imprinted on the stone. Yet what's most remarkable is how these spaces remain actively used. In the cliffside monastery of Simonoptera, novices still spend 40-day fasts in cells unchanged since the 14th century. Modern additions are minimal: a solar-powered bulb here, a stainless steel cup there, but the essence persists. Some elders speak of the hidden Lavra, an entire underground monastery rumored to exist beneath the peninsula's northern tip, its entrance concealed behind a waterfall. Satellite imagery shows anomalous heat patterns in the area, but Athos' strict entry laws prevent investigation. The true secret of these cells isn't their location, but what they represent: a faith so consuming it willingly embraces darkness to find light. When a monk at Vatopti described his years in a cliffside cell, he didn't speak of hardship, but of how the rock's constant hum taught him to hear silence as a language. That's the paradox of Athos. Its most sacred spaces aren't grand cathedrals, but holes in stone where the divine whispers loudest to those willing to disappear completely. Beneath the towering Kailasa temple of Ellora, where sun worshippers marvel at the world's largest monolithic sculpture, a shadow world waits in silence. While visitors crane their necks to admire sunlit pillars carved to mimic Himalayan peaks, few realize the true marvel lies underfoot: a labyrinth of chambers so precisely engineered, they defy the technological limitations of 8th century India. These aren't just caves, they're a spiritual subterranean city, where every curve in the rock whispers of advanced acoustics, celestial alignment, and rituals meant to bend perception itself. Step beyond the main prayer halls, and the air changes damp, cool, and humming with an almost electrical charge. The so-called Cave of Mysteries plunges nearly 5 stories deep, its staircases spiraling downward like the interior of a conch shell. Unlike the ornate upper levels adorned with dancing Shiva reliefs, these lower walls are eerily bare, polished smooth by centuries of hands brushing against them in darkness. The absence of decoration is deliberate. Monks who meditated here described how the blank stone amplified inner visions, the rock acting as a psychic mirror. But the real wonder emerges when you whisper. Certain niches transform even the softest word into a chorus of echoes that seem to come from every direction, an effect modern sound engineers attribute to parabolic curves carved with millimeter precision. What chills the spine isn't just the craftsmanship, but the lingering sense of purpose. In Cave 29, a hexagonal chamber connects to a vertical shaft that channels moonlight on the summer solstice, illuminating a now-faded mural of the cosmic serpent Shesha. Nearby, a sunken pool shows no signs of tool marks, its edges melted smooth as if by heat. Local ascetics still speak of Tapasya caves, where monks would sit in absolute darkness for 40-day fasts, their only companion a bronze bowl of water that somehow never emptied. Archaeologists have found traces of psychoactive herbs in these chambers, suggesting some rituals may have bridged the physical and spiritual realms through carefully controlled trance states. The greatest enigma lies in the unexcavated tunnels. Ground scans reveal hollow spaces extending toward the nearby Buddhist caves, their alignment matching the constellation Orion as it appeared in 790 AD. Some theorize these were escape routes during religious conflicts. Others believe they formed a sacred geography, mirroring the celestial Ganges described in ancient texts. One blocked passage near Cave 34 bears a warning inscription in Pali. The path of the Siddhas is not for the unripe. When workers attempted to clear it in the 1920s, their lamps inexplicably snuffed out and the project was abandoned. Today, the caves still pulse with hidden life. At dawn, before tourists arrive, you might hear the faint clang of a Ganta bell from depths no guidebook mentions. The monks know they've always known. Ellora's underground isn't just architecture, it's an instrument, tuned to frequencies beyond hearing, waiting for the right hands to play it again. Beyond the rose-red grandeur of Petra's treasury, where tourists cluster to marvel at Nabatean craftsmanship, the cliffs hold secrets far older and quieter, whispers of devotion carved into stone by hands that feared the light. These hidden monasteries, etched into sheer rock faces by early Christian hermits, weren't just places of worship, they were acts of defiance. Imagine squeezing through a crack in the canyon wall, barely wider than your shoulders, to emerge into a chapel hollowed out of living rock. The air here is thick with the scent of crushed sage and ancient dust, the walls pockmarked with niches where oil lamps once flickered under paintings of saints, now faded to ghostly outlines. This was faith stripped bare, no gold, no marble, just the raw earth and the determination to preserve it. What's startling is how thoroughly these spaces vanish into the landscape. From the outside, the monks' cells resemble natural erosion patterns until you notice the perfectly squared doorways camouflaged by shadow, or the cross-shaped ventilation shafts disguised as geological fractures. Inside, the austerity is breathtaking. Sleeping niches barely long enough to lie down in, prayer ledges worn smooth by elbows, and in one chamber near the high place of sacrifice, a baptismal font fed by a hidden channel that still catches winter rains. But the true genius lies in the graffiti. Pilgrims who risked everything to reach these sanctuaries left their marks, Coptic crosses scratched beside Nabatean carvings, Greek prayers overlapping older Thamudic inscriptions, layers of belief pressed together like pages in a clandestine diary. Survival here demanded more than faith. It required engineering brilliance. The monks transformed Petra's seasonal floods into lifelines. Channels carved into cliff faces funneled water into cisterns lined with waterproof plaster, some large enough to hold a year's supply. At the Monastery of Erin, archaeologists found a filtration system using layers of sand and charcoal technology centuries ahead of its time. But the most poignant relics are the personal ones, a wooden comb preserved in the dry air, its teeth still clogged with desert sand, a ceramic cup with a repaired crack, treasured too much to discard. These weren't ascetics who shunned the world, they were refugees who carried fragments of it into hiding. The contrast with Petra's Nabatean splendor couldn't be sharper. Where the treasury dazzles with Hellenistic flourishes, these chapels whisper in the language of humility, yet their influence rippled far beyond these cliffs. Scholars believe the Desert Fathers of Petra inspired the entire monastic movement, their practices carried westward by fleeing believers. Today, as sunlight slants through doorways aligned to catch the equinox dawn, you can almost hear the echoes of chants that once rose from these stones, a melody of resilience written in rock and memory. Petra's greatest treasure isn't gold or grandeur, but the stubborn light that refused to be extinguished, burning quietly in the dark. Beneath the tranquil cloisters of St. Wandrille, where Norman sunlight filters through ancient apple trees, the earth holds memories of a far more turbulent past. This abbey, founded in the 7th century, survived Viking raids not by sheer walls alone, but through an ingenious subterranean web that turned the very ground into both sanctuary and strategic stronghold. Descend the worn stone steps near the refectory, and the temperature drops suddenly, the air carrying a damp mineral scent mixed with something fainter, like old parchment or beeswax from candles extinguished centuries ago. The tunnels here aren't crude dugouts, they're masterclasses in medieval crisis architecture, their vaulted ceilings reinforced with herringbone brickwork that could withstand the weight of stamping boots overhead. What's remarkable is how these spaces serve dual purposes. A seemingly ordinary storage alcove reveals a hidden pivot door leading to a tiny chapel, its altar carved from a single block of keen limestone. The grooves where monks once slid a wooden panel to conceal the entrance are still visible, worn smooth by generations of urgent gestures. Nearby, circular depressions in the floor mark where reliquaries were buried during raids, precious bones of saints tucked beneath flagstones, safe from Norse axes. But the true stroke of genius lies in the ventilation shafts disguised as natural fissures, their openings angled to prevent smoke from revealing cooking fires below ground. The scriptorium tunnels tell their own story of quiet rebellion. In one narrow passage, the walls bear faint charcoal sketches, practice illuminations scratched by apprentice scribes during lulls in danger. Paleographers recently identified these as early drafts of the St. Wandrille Gospels, proving manuscripts were copied underground when raiders prowled above. The monks even devised an ingenious inking system. Hollowed-out stalactites dripped mineral-rich water into pots of crushed gallnuts, creating iron gall ink without telltale smoke from grinding. Local legend speaks of a tunnel leading 3 miles to the forest of Broton, its entrance hidden beneath the abbey's well. 19th century farmers reported finding oak reinforcement beams in peat bogs aligned towards St. Wandrille. Whether escape route or supply line, these passages embody medieval monasticism's adaptability, where faith wasn't just professed, but physically carved into the landscape as a lifeline. Today, when morning mist rises from the Seine Valley, it's easy to picture shadows moving silently beneath the grass, carrying not fear, but the determined light of preservation. Carved into the sheer cliffs of Georgia's Irosheti Mountain, Vardzia doesn't just cling to the rock, it breathes through it. This labyrinthine city of faith, honeycombed with over 600 chambers across 13 levels, feels less constructed than revealed, as if the mountain itself opened its veins to shelter sacred life. Walk its dimly lit corridors today, and you'll tread the same flagstones where 2,000 monks once moved like shadows, their existence woven into the stone with astonishing precision. What appears at first as simple caves soon reveals itself as a masterpiece of medieval ingenuity, a self-sustaining universe where every tunnel, every hand-carved step served purposes both practical and divine. The genius of Vardzia lies in its details. Narrow ventilation shafts disguised as natural fissures kept the air fresh even during winter sieges. Hidden channels harvested mountain springs, directing water through ceramic pipes to communal baths, refectory kitchens, and the most unexpected space of all, vast wine cellars where every clay vessel still bear the stains of ancient vintages. Monks here didn't just survive, they thrived, pressing grapes in rock-cut troughs and storing harvests in chambers kept at perfect temperature by the earth's natural insulation. But the true marvel is the emergency system, dozens of escape routes disguised as storage niches or latrines, some leading to sheer cliff faces where rope ladders could be unfurled in seconds. Spirituality pulses through these tunnels like a second heartbeat. The Church of the Dormition, Vardzia's spiritual core, glows with 12th century frescoes that seem to float on golden light. Here, Queen Tama Georgia's legendary ruler kneels in painted supplication, her crown offered to the Virgin Mary. The artists employed a peculiar technique, mixing pigment with grape juice to make the colors bond chemically with the rock. Yet even this sacred art served a dual purpose. During Mongol invasions, monks whitewashed the murals, preserving them beneath layers of lime that would take 7 centuries to peel away. Earthquakes have since sealed many passages, leaving modern archaeologists to map the unknown with ground-penetrating radar. What they've found chills the spine, a vertical shaft descending 80 feet to an oval chamber lined with lead, possibly a secret scriptorium for protecting manuscripts. Elsewhere, thermal imaging reveals a network branching toward the Mtkevari River, its purpose still unclear. Local monks whisper of the Bell Cave, a lost chamber where striking certain stalactites produced pure musical tones used in clandestine worship. What lingers most isn't the scale, but the intimacy. In one dim cell, finger grooves mark where a monk traced prayers into the wall day after day. Another holds a single worn sandal left behind in haste. Vardzia's power lies in these quiet moments, proof that even in darkness, humanity builds not just for survival, but for the soul. The mountain may keep its deepest secrets, but the whispers remain, of chants echoing through wine-scented tunnels, of ink drying on vellum by lamplight, and of a faith so resilient it could carve a kingdom from the cliffs themselves. The monastery of San Juan de la Peña clings to the Aragonese cliffs like a secret pressed between stone and sky, but its true heart beats deeper, in shadowed chambers where faith refused to die. Descend past the Romanesque upper church, and the air thickens with the weight of history, the walls narrowing into a labyrinth carved not by human hands but by necessity. These caves were sanctuary long before the monastery rose above them. Visigothic monks fled here in the 8th century, their chants muffled by the same overhanging rock that hid them from Moorish scouts. What began as desperation became devotion. The rough-hewn walls slowly transformed into something sacred. The lower church feels like stepping into a living reliquary. Faint frescoes of wide-eyed saints peer from niches where oil lamps once flickered, their pigments mixed with crushed local minerals, ochre from the Pyrenees, malachite from the Ebro Valley. But it's the so-called Holy Grail chapel that steals the breath. A vaulted recess behind the altar houses a simple alabaster cup, its rim chipped from centuries of veneration. While scholars debate whether this could be the legendary chalice of Christ, the deeper truth lies in what it represents, a symbol of continuity. During the darkest years of Islamic rule, this humble cup became a defiant promise that faith, like water, would find its way through stone. The monastery's survival depended on more than secrecy. It was a masterclass in strategic adaptation. Hidden channels collected rainwater into cisterns lined with beeswax to prevent detection by scent. Passages disguised as natural fissures connected to a network of shepherd trails. allowing messengers to slip into the mountains with scrolls sewn into sheepskin cloaks. Even the architecture speaks in code. The lower church's pillars are spaced unevenly, creating acoustic dead zones where whispered confessions couldn't be overheard by potential informants. Yet what lingers most isn't the ingenuity, but the intimacy. In a side chamber, the tombs of Aragonese nobles lie shoulder to shoulder with unmarked graves, their anonymity a silent testament to the monks who risked everything to bury them with Christian rites. The walls here bear countless small crosses, not carved by chisels but fingernails, each groove a prayer etched in desperation. Modern laser scans have revealed even older markings beneath the plaster, Arabic calligraphy praising Allah, later covered by psalms in Latin. This palimpsest of belief tells the real story, not of conquest but of layers, of a sacred space that absorbed every chapter of Spain's turbulent past. Today, sunlight filters through the cliff's edge above the lower church, casting dappled patterns that shift like living stained glass. It's a fitting metaphor for San Juan de la Peña itself, a place where light and shadow, history and legend intertwine until they're inseparable. The rock that once hid believers now reveals their legacy, proving that sometimes the most enduring faith isn't built upward toward heaven, but sheltered in the quiet embrace of the earth. Beneath Canterbury Cathedral's soaring Gothic arches, where light filters through stained glass onto marble tombs, the air grows still and heavy as you descend into England's best-kept ecclesiastical secret. The cathedral's underground labyrinth doesn't just house relics, it breathes with the suppressed history of a nation torn between faith and crown. Step carefully down worn limestone stairs, and you'll enter crypts so ancient their walls predate the Norman conquest itself. The oldest sections, built by Saxon monks in the 11th century, curve like the ribs of some great stone beast, their rough-hewn surfaces still bearing the pick marks of craftsmen who worked by rushlight. This is no mere burial chamber, it's a palimpsest of power where every alcove tells of survival against impossible odds. The tunnels reveal their secrets reluctantly. A seemingly solid wall near St. Gabriel's Chapel pivots open to reveal a passage barely wide enough for robed shoulders, a bolt hole used during Thomas Becket's murder in 1170. Further on, grooves in the floor mark where heavy chests were dragged to hide precious manuscripts during Henry VIII's rampage. The cathedral's monks became masters of sacred sleight of hand. They hollowed out columns to stash silver reliquaries, disguised escape routes as drainage channels, and even repurposed a pagan burial shaft as a vertical storage silo for communion wine. Archaeologists recently discovered lead tokens in these tunnels, clandestine currency minted during the Reformation, when the underground became a shadow economy preserving rituals banned above ground. What chills the spine isn't the darkness but the graffiti. Scratched into a niche near the Black Prince's tomb are tally marks counting the days of Henry's siege, while a crude caricature of the king's face bears knife slashes across the eyes. More poignant still are the charcoal sketches left by exiled Catholic priests, faint images of the Virgin Mary drawn with fingers dipped in candle soot. The crypt's most moving artifact, though, lies hidden beneath a loose flagstone, a child-sized cope embroidered with silver thread, likely used to disguise young novices as choir boys during inspections. Modern technology has peeled back even deeper layers. Ground-penetrating radar reveals tunnels branching toward the river Stour, possibly used to smuggle in supplies during sieges. Thermal imaging shows anomalies beneath St. Anselm's Chapel, perhaps the fabled scriptorium where illuminated psalters were copied in secret. But the cathedral guards its mysteries jealously. When attempts were made to excavate a tunnel rumored to lead to St. Augustine's Abbey, workmen reported an eerie metallic ringing that stopped their tools cold. Today, these stones still thrum with hidden life, At midnight on certain feast days, monks descend to chant the office in the crypt by candlelight, their voices bouncing off walls that once muffled whispered Latin. The air smells of damp wool and beeswax, unchanged since medieval processions wound through these passages with relics held high. Canterbury's underground isn't just a relic of the past, it's a living archive, where every shadow holds the memory of faith preserved against all odds. The fairy chimneys of Gurim rise from the Turkish landscape like something from a dream, towers of soft volcanic rock, sculpted by wind and time into impossible shapes. But these natural wonders hide a secret far more extraordinary than their whimsical exteriors suggest. Carved into their very cores lie entire monasteries, their walls still vibrant with the colors of faith pressed into stone over 15 centuries ago. Step through an unassuming crack in the rock, and you're transported into a world where devotion took physical form, where monks turned caves into canvases and solitude into a spiritual art form. What strikes you first is the intimacy of these spaces. Unlike grand cathedrals built to inspire awe, Gurim's cave churches feel profoundly personal, low ceilings forcing bowed heads, niches barely wide enough for a single kneeling figure. The Karanlik Kalais, or dark church, lives up to its name, with only a small opening for light. Its interior becomes a cocoon of flickering gold as candlelight dances across frescoes of the Pantocrator and the Nativity. The pigments here weren't just applied, they were ground into the rock itself, mixed with egg yolk and wine to create colors that outlasted empires. Scenes of the Last Judgment ripple across curved walls, their blues and crimsons still shockingly vivid, preserved by the very darkness that defined monastic life here. But these weren't just places of worship, they were experiments in extreme devotion. In the so-called Monk's Valley, cells no larger than coffins dot cliff faces, accessible only by rope ladders long since rotted away. Inside, you'll find sleeping ledges carved at precise angles to prevent deep sleep, and circular grooves where monks tied ropes around their waists to stay upright during marathon prayer sessions. Some caves feature ingenious systems of handholds and footholds leading to isolated meditation, ledges physical trials meant to mirror spiritual ascent. The most revealing detail might be the shallow basins carved beside prayer niches, designed to collect condensation from breath during winter vigils, providing the only drinking water for weeks at a time. Recent discoveries peel back even deeper layers. Laser scans in the Yılanlı Church revealed previously hidden chambers beneath the floor, their walls covered in graffiti like prayers scratched by pilgrims. One inscription reads, Kyrie eleison, in shaky Greek, likely carved during a 7th century Arab raid. Elsewhere, archaeologists found a sealed room behind the Tokoli Church containing pigments, brushes, and half-finished icons, a snapshot of artistic devotion interrupted. Most haunting are the whisper tunnels, narrow shafts connecting certain cells where monks could hear confessions or offer guidance without breaking their solitude. The true marvel of Gurim isn't just its preservation, but its continuity. In the Kislar Monastery, patches of soot darken the ceiling above modern tea candles placed by local women praying for fertility. The same handholds worn smooth by medieval sandals now guide the fingers of archaeologists and curious travelers. Even the silence feels alive here, not empty, but charged with the echoes of countless whispered psalms. These caves remind us that faith, when pressed to its edges, doesn't retreat, it digs in, carving sacred space from the very bones of the earth. Beneath the Monastery of the Cross in Jerusalem, where pilgrims tread softly across mosaic floors depicting the tree of Jesse, the earth holds whispers of a far more clandestine history. This 12th century fortress of faith guards not just relics above ground, but an entire shadow realm beneath its foundations. A honeycomb of tunnels so extensive, even modern archaeologists haven't mapped their full reach. Descend the iron-railed staircase near the chapel's northern wall, and the temperature plummets as you enter a passageway barely wider than your shoulders. The walls here tell stories in layers: Crusader crosses chiseled beside older Byzantine graffiti, Arabic prayers etched during Saladin's reign, and strange geometric symbols that defy translation. The tunnels served as lifelines during Jerusalem's bloodiest sieges. Narrow side chambers once held chests of illuminated manuscripts and silver reliquaries, ready to be whisked away through hidden exits. One particularly cunning passage, now barred by an iron gate, slopes downward at a precise angle engineered so rolling barrels of olive oil could be used to transport heavy treasures without leaving telltale scrape marks. Local lore claims this route once connected to the Temple Mount, though Ottoman rulers sealed it centuries ago. What's undeniable is the monks' ingenuity. Ventilation shafts disguised as cisterns kept the air fresh, while alcoves with sloping floors collected condensation for drinking water during long sieges. But the catacombs guard darker secrets too. In a vaulted chamber dubbed the Crypt of the Silent Brothers, row upon row of Crusader-era graves lie beneath slabs carved with enigmatic symbols, not the usual crosses or epitaphs, but interlocking circles and spirals that match Templar motifs found in France. Some slabs bear odd depressions where wax seals once held shrouds in place, suggesting these monks were buried in haste. The most chilling discovery came in 2014, when ground-penetrating radar revealed a previously unknown subchamber beneath the crypt. Its walls are lined with lead, a material medieval monks used to contain what they considered spiritual contamination. The real mystery lingers in the artwork. Near the tomb of a monk identified only as Brother Marcellus, the ceiling arches are painted with constellations, but not as they appear in Jerusalem's sky. These stars mirror their alignment over Chartres Cathedral on the summer solstice of 1185, the year the monastery received a shipment of relics from France. Was this celestial map a coded message, or simply a homesick monk's tribute? The answer may lie in a sealed side tunnel where thermal imaging has detected metallic objects, possibly the missing ceremonial objects described in 12th century inventory scrolls. Modern monks still guard these passages with quiet vigilance. On rare occasions, they'll point out subtle details most visitors miss. A patch of wall where the mortar looks fresher, hiding a collapsed tunnel. A floor tile that sounds hollow when tapped, concealing an emergency cache. The air here carries the faintest scent of myrrh, though no incense has burned in these chambers for centuries. It's as if the stones themselves remember the prayers once whispered in their darkness, a sacred echo no amount of time can erase. Jerusalem's soil has always swallowed secrets whole, but beneath the Monastery of the Cross, history refuses to stay buried. Beneath the soaring arches of Cluny Abbey, where sunlight once streamed through stained glass onto the largest altar in Christendom, the earth holds echoes of a hidden Renaissance. While pilgrims marveled at the grandeur above, monks moved silently through corridors carved deep into Burgundian limestone, a subterranean counterpart to the glory overhead. These weren't mere cellars, they formed the abbey's secret nervous system, pulsing with activity even as wars and reforms raged above ground. Step through a low doorway near the chapter house, and the air changes, damp and cool, carrying the faintest scent of iron gall ink lingering after 9 centuries. The scriptorium tunnels unfold like the pages of an illuminated manuscript, their walls still bearing charcoal sketches where monks practiced elaborate initials before committing them to vellum. Here, in flickering lamplight, scribes copied not just scripture but Aristotle's logic, Galen's medicine, and Roman poetry, rescuing classical knowledge from the so-called Dark Ages one painstaking stroke at a time. The genius lay in their secrecy. Manuscripts were stored in niches lined with crushed lavender to deter insects, while ventilation shafts disguised as buttress drains prevented candle smoke from betraying their location. But these tunnels served more than scholarship. During the 100 Years' War, they became a clandestine supply network. A recently unearthed passage near the bakery reveals grooves where carts transported grain from village farms to underground granaries, sustaining the community during sieges. Elsewhere, archaeologists found a chamber with a stone table etched with chessboard patterns, likely a command center where abbots coordinated with local resistance fighters. The most startling discovery came in 2019, when laser scans revealed a submerged tunnel leading to the nearby Château de Lourdes. Its walls bear scorch marks at regular intervals, suggesting torches were placed to guide nocturnal messengers. What survives today is but a whisper of Cluny's subterranean empire. Earthquakes and Napoleon's troops destroyed much, yet fragments speak volumes. In the so-called Cave of Echoes, a domed chamber amplifies whispers between opposite walls, perfect for relaying warnings. Nearby, a wine cellar's walls are stained purple not from grapes, but from oxidized iron in the ink of manuscripts hidden during the French Revolution. Most poignant are the tiny crosses scratched by novices awaiting ordination in hiding, their shaky lines a testament to faith under pressure. Modern technology continues to peel back layers. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped a vast, unexplored network beneath the Abbey's south garden, its layout matching descriptions of a legendary underground infirmary. Local archivists recently deciphered a 12th-century inventory mentioning a cave of colors, where pigments were stored, possibly explaining the vibrant hues in Cluny's surviving manuscripts. As restoration continues, each discovery reinforces a truth the monks knew well, that true resilience often lies not in towering stone, but in the quiet, determined work that happens beneath the surface. The dense jungles of central Sri Lanka conceal a secret written in stone. Aluvihara's cave monasteries, where the whispers of ancient monks still seem to linger in the humid air. These aren't mere hollows in the rock, they're a living archive of Buddhist devotion, their walls lined with the echoes of 1,000 chants and the weight of sacred texts painstakingly preserved through centuries of turmoil. Step inside the main cave and the temperature drops suddenly, the scent of old parchment and sandalwood mixing with the mineral tang of damp stone. The ceilings arch like the pages of an open manuscript, blackened in patches by the soot of oil lamps that once burned through nights of transcription. Here, in flickering light, generations of monks copied the Pali Canon onto Ola leaf scrolls, their reed pens scratching against the fragile material with a devotion that bordered on reverence. What makes Aluvihara extraordinary isn't just its age. These caves sheltered Buddhist scholars as early as the 3rd century BCE, but the ingenuity of its design. Narrow tunnels branch off from the main chambers, some leading to meditation cells so small they force the body into the lotus position, their walls polished smooth by the robes of countless practitioners. The acoustics are uncanny. A single whispered mantra in the Dhamma cave reverberates as if amplified by invisible hands, a phenomenon modern sound engineers attribute to the chamber's precise parabolic shape. Local monks still speak of the echo that teaches, where novices would chant sutras and listen for the returning sound to correct their pronunciation. But survival here required more than spiritual discipline. During the 10th century Chola invasions, these caves became a fortress of knowledge. Manuscripts were hidden behind false walls constructed from compacted ash and resin, indistinguishable from solid rock. A clever system of ventilation shafts disguised as natural fissures allowed cooking fires to burn without betraying the monks' presence. The most tantalizing legend, though, swirls around the Golden Cave, a rumored chamber where the community allegedly hid gold-leafed scriptures and relics. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed hollow spaces beneath the largest stupa, but the monks forbid excavation, believing the treasures will reveal themselves when the time is right. Today, Aluvihara's caves pulse with quiet continuity. In one dim alcove, you might find a young novice tracing poly verses onto palm leaves using the same techniques as his ancestors, the ink made from crushed berries and charcoal. Nearby, a polished stone slab bears a depression where generations of monks ground herbs for medicinal ointments, their healing knowledge preserved alongside sacred texts. The true treasure of Aluvihara isn't gold or gems. It's the unbroken thread of practice, stretching from those first scribes to the present day, proving that sometimes the most enduring sanctuaries aren't built to dazzle, but to endure. Beneath the sunlit domes of Hosio's Laukas, where golden mosaics shimmer with scenes of heavenly glory, the earth holds an even greater treasure, one meant only for the eyes of the faithful. Descend the worn marble steps near the Catholican, and the air grows cool, heavy with the scent of beeswax and wet stone. Here, in crypts untouched by daylight for centuries, the walls come alive with a secret symphony of color. Tiny glass tesserae catch the flicker of your candle, transforming the vaulted ceilings into celestial maps, sapphire saints and emerald angels frozen mid-praise, their brilliance undimmed by time. This isn't just hidden art, it's defiance made visible, a whispered rebellion pressed into mortar when Ottoman rulers forbade Christian worship above ground. The miracle of these mosaics lies in their survival. While invaders whitewashed frescoes in the upper church, the underground saints remained untouched, their gold leaf glowing softly in lamplight. Scholars believe the monks used ingenious camouflage. False walls of packed earth concealed the most sacred images, while others were hidden beneath layers of plain plaster. One panel near the crypt entrance shows Saint Luke himself holding a gospel book, his eyes deliberately misaligned to avoid the gaze of Ottoman inspectors who might recognize the subject. The effect is haunting. Tilt your head slightly, and the saint's gaze locks onto yours with startling intensity, as if bridging the centuries between his creation and your discovery. But these chambers weren't just for hiding, they were for living. A maze of narrow tunnels, some barely wide enough to crawl through, connects the crypts to hermitages dotting the surrounding hills. Monks would slip through these passages under cover of darkness, carrying oil for lamps and bread baked with barley smuggled from distant villages. The most revealing discovery came in 2012, when conservators found charcoal sketches on tunnel walls, practice drawings for the mosaics above, proof that the monks continued refining their craft even in exile. Near one sketch, a single word is scratched in medieval Greek, anamnesis, remembering. What chills the soul isn't the darkness, but the traces of those who endured it. In a side chamber, the stone floor bears deep grooves from generations of knees polishing the rock in prayer. A niche holds a clay lamp with a wick still blackened from its last use, its oil long since evaporated. Most poignant are the breath holes, small vertical shafts drilled upward to the main church, not for air, but so monks below could hear the liturgy whispered by collaborators above during raids. Today, restoration work continues to unveil lost masterpieces. Multispectral imaging recently revealed a previously unknown mosaic of the Virgin Mary beneath the crypt's north wall, her face emerging from centuries of grime like a vision. But the greatest secret Hosio's Laukas guards may be intangible, the way these underground spaces still hum with presence. On quiet mornings before tourists arrive, caretakers swear they've heard the faintest echo of Byzantine chant rising from the stones, as if the walls themselves refuse to forget the prayers once pressed into their silence. Rising from the Atlantic like a jagged fist of stone, Skellig Michael holds its secrets tight against the screaming winds and crashing waves. This island monastery, clinging to sheer cliffs 700 feet above the churning sea, wasn't just remote, it was a deliberate rejection of comfort, a place where early Irish monks carved their faith into the rock itself. Step onto the vertigo-inducing stairway hewn from the cliff face, and you're following in the footsteps of men who sought God not in stained glass grandeur, but in the raw howl of the elements. The true marvel lies not in the beehive huts dotting the summit, but in the hidden cells gouged into the cliffs below. These aren't simple caves, they're architectural feats of endurance. Some measure barely 3 feet wide, forcing occupants to sleep curled like children, their spines pressed against cold stone. The most extreme, known as the penitential cell, perches over a sheer drop, accessible only by a toe-hold traverse that would test a mountain goat. Here, monks knelt on ledges no wider than a prayer book, their robes lashed to iron rings to prevent being blown into the abyss during storms. The walls bear grooves where ropes once anchored the devout during their vigils, physical proof of what spiritual discipline truly meant in 6th century Ireland. Survival here demanded more than faith. It required ingenuity. Fresh water trickled through cleverly channeled fissures into rock-cut basins, while south-facing cells captured precious sunlight through slits aligned with the winter solstice. Archaeologists found traces of lichen and dried seaweed in recesses, evidence that monks supplemented their meager diets with whatever the brutal environment provided. But the most telling discoveries are the scripture stones, small slate tablets found in cliffside niches where monks scratched psalms to memorize during isolation. One reads simply, "The wave will not drown me, nor the rock break me, for he is between me and all things." What chills the modern visitor isn't the discomfort, but the intentionality. These men didn't just endure Skellig Michael, they sought it out, drawn by the very harshness that repels others. In a hidden oratory near the island's eastern face, the wind produces an eerie harmonic when it strikes the stone at certain angles, creating a natural choir some scholars believe was used to enhance chanting. Other cells feature squint windows, angled precisely to frame the rising sun on feast days, turning the rock itself into a liturgical calendar. The island's isolation preserved more than ruins, it safeguarded a mindset. When Viking raiders scoured the coast in the 9th century, Skellig Michael's monks watched their longships pass like toys far below, powerless to reach the ascetics clinging to their vertical sanctuary. Today, as puffins wheel around the cliffs and seals bark in the coves, the stones still whisper of a faith so fierce it could carve holiness from storm and stone alike. The true miracle of Skellig Michael isn't that men lived here, it's what they became by choosing to stay. The towering rock pillars of Meteora seem to scrape the heavens, their summit monasteries suspended between earth and sky, but the real spiritual journey begins beneath your feet. While tourists crane their necks to admire the cliffside marvels, few realize these sacred rocks are hollow, honeycombed with caves where hermits sought God in darkness long before the first rope pulley hauled stones skyward. Descend into the shadows near the great Meteoron Monastery, and you'll find doorways carved into the living rock, their thresholds worn smooth by bare feet that once shuffled inward, never to return. These caves weren't just shelters, they were crucibles of extreme devotion. The Chapel of the Holy Spirit, hidden deep within a sandstone spire, holds frescoes so vibrant they seem painted yesterday, saints' eyes gleaming in candlelight, their blues and crimsons mixed with wine and egg yolk by artists who worked without daylight. What's astonishing isn't just their preservation, but their placement, Some images are crammed into alcoves barely large enough for a child, suggesting monks contorted their bodies to create art no one might ever see. Nearby, a vertical shaft known as the Well of Silence drops 30 feet to a chamber where hermits would sit for weeks, their only water source being condensation licked from the walls. Survival here demanded more than faith, it required acrobatics. Many caves remain inaccessible without climbing gear, their entrances deliberately carved into overhangs to deter the curious. The hermitage of St. Nicolaus Anapaphsus dangles 200 feet above the valley, reachable only by iron rugs hammered into the cliff face in the 14th century. Inside, the walls bear grooves where ropes once secured monks during meditation, preventing fatal plunges when exhaustion set in. Others feature blind tunnels, passages that dead-end abruptly, designed to disorient invaders or perhaps the hermits themselves, stripping away all sense of direction to heighten spiritual focus. What lingers most isn't the hardship, but the intimacy. In a cave near Varlom Monastery, the ceiling bears thousands of tiny crosses scratched with fingernails, a tactile rosary marking decades of repetition. Another holds a single wooden bowl, its rim worn thin where lips met grain day after day. Modern laser scans have revealed even deeper chambers, their walls etched with musical notations for chants meant to resonate at specific frequencies within the rock. Some tunnels slope downward toward natural resonating chambers, suggesting sound itself was a pathway to the divine here. The true miracle of Meteora's underground isn't that men endured these caves, but what they discovered within them. A 14th century manuscript describes hermits developing darkness contemplation, a meditation technique where extended isolation rewired perception. Colors blossomed behind closed eyelids, silence became symphonic. Today, as sunlight filters through crevices onto frescoes of ascetic saints, you realize these caves weren't escapes from the world, but portals to something far beyond it. The cliffs may reach for heaven, but the real revelations happened in the sacred dark below. Beneath the serene cloisters of Poblet Monastery, where the scent of orange blossoms mingles with centuries-old stone, lies a shadow world of medieval ingenuity. This 12th century Cistercian masterpiece, nestled in Catalonia's Golden Hills, guards more than just vaulted chapels and royal tombs. It conceals an underground labyrinth where faith and survival intertwine. Descend the worn spiral staircase near the abbey's bakery, and the air shifts abruptly from Mediterranean warmth to a damp chill that raises goosebumps. The walls here bear the marks of countless hurried hands, grooves from torches, smudges of oil, and in one recess, a perfectly preserved fingerprint pressed into mortar by a monk fleeing the Black Death. The tunnels reveal their secrets in layers. Some corridors arrow straight toward the Francoli River, their floors subtly sloped to channel groundwater into cisterns during sieges. Others twist unexpectedly, branching into chambers with vaulted ceilings designed to amplify Gregorian chants, acoustic marvels where a single voice could swell to sound like a heavenly choir. Modern sound engineers have identified precise concave surfaces in these spaces, sculpted to bounce specific frequencies off the limestone. But the real stroke of genius lies in the whispering galleries, curved passages where messages could travel hundreds of feet without raising alarm above ground. During the Catalan Revolt of 1640, these very corridors carried warnings that saved the monastery's priceless manuscripts from destruction. Wine stains tell another story. Poblet's subterranean cellars stretch deeper than the abbey itself, their walls blackened by centuries of fermentation. Here, monks perfected techniques still used by winemakers today, stacking barrels on their sides to keep corks moist, positioning them along natural geothermal lines for temperature control. The oldest cask, dated to 1382, bears charring from a fire set by Napoleonic troops, yet miraculously preserved its contents. But these weren't just storage spaces, they were theological statements. The Cistercians viewed winemaking as sacred labor, and the cellar's layout mirrors the abbey's cruciform plan, each barrel row aligned to correspond with an altar above, as if the earth itself participated in the Eucharist. Recent discoveries peel back even deeper mysteries. Laser scans in 2021 revealed a previously unknown tunnel snaking toward the Prade's mountains, its entrance concealed behind a wine press. Charred timber fragments suggest it was used to evacuate during the 1285 siege, when flames engulfed the upper cloisters. Elsewhere, archaeologists uncovered a coded ledger scratched into a cellar wall, notations of wine shipments disguised as psalm verses, likely tracking clandestine trade during the Spanish Civil War when the monastery became a refuge. What lingers most isn't the engineering, but the humanity. In a narrow side passage, someone carved a tiny chessboard into the stone, its pieces fashioned from bread crusts hardened by time. Nearby, a child's sandal was found beneath a collapsed ceiling, a silent witness to families sheltered here during the Reaper's War. Poblet's underground isn't just a relic of conflict, it's a testament to the stubborn light of community that refused to be extinguished. The same tunnels that once carried whispers of danger now echo with the footsteps of pilgrims, their modern-day journeys mirroring those of the medieval faithful who understood that sometimes holiness isn't just found in soaring arches, but in the quiet, determined work of preserving both wine and wisdom beneath the weight of the world. Beneath the soaring arches of Batalha Monastery, where sunlight filters through stained glass onto the tomb of Prince Henry the Navigator, the earth holds the ghost of an unfinished dream. Descend the worn stone steps near the Founder's Chapel, and the grandeur above gives way to something far more intriguing, a shadowy world of half-built chapels and abandoned tunnels, their walls whispering of ambitions that outstripped even the craftsmen's formidable skills. These aren't mere crypts, they're a blueprint for what might have been, a subterranean sketchbook where Gothic vision collided with the limits of medieval engineering. The most haunting space is the Capellas Imperfectas, the unfinished chapels, a cluster of roofless sanctuaries where scaffolding grooves still scar the walls like unfinished sentences. Here, in the damp silence, you can trace the architect's evolving plans in the stone itself. Columns that start as simple octagons but morph into intricate twisted ropes halfway up, vault ribs that sprout unexpected floral motifs, and arches crowned with armillary spheres, Portugal's symbol of exploration, left incomplete when King Duarte died in 1438. The air smells of wet limestone and iron oxide, the latter from pigments once stockpiled for frescoes that were never painted, but the true secrets lie beyond the chapels. A low doorway concealed behind a carved pelican, the Christian symbol of self-sacrifice, opens onto a tunnel that slopes downward into darkness. This was meant to connect Batalha to the nearby monastery of Alcabossa, an underground highway for monks spanning nearly 20 miles. The passage extends only a few hundred feet before ending abruptly at a wall of rubble, but its construction reveals staggering ambition. The ceiling is reinforced with alternating layers of brick and cork, a shock-absorbing technique centuries ahead of its time, while side niches every 30 paces held oil lamps and freshwater jugs for travelers. War transformed these spaces from architectural experiments into sanctuaries. During Napoleon's invasion of 1810, monks bricked up the tunnel entrances and hid precious manuscripts in hollowed-out altar bases. X-rays recently revealed one such cache, a 13th-century copy of St. Augustine's City of God, wrapped in waxed linen, its pages perfectly preserved. Elsewhere, scorch marks on the walls of an underground scriptorium tell of frantic nights when scribes worked by shielded candlelight to duplicate texts before originals could be looted. The most enigmatic finds are the symbols. Beneath the chapter house, a vaulted chamber is carved with alchemical signs, circles squared, lunar crescents entwined with crosses, interspersed with nautical stars that hint at Prince Henry's influence. One recurring motif shows a tower with roots descending as deep as its height rises, a possible metaphor for the monastery's own hidden duality. Modern masons working on restoration discovered these weren't mere decorations. Chiseled tests proved the symbols marked areas where the stone's density changed, suggesting the monks had an almost geological understanding of their materials. Today, Battlehaus Underground remains a living puzzle. Laser scans in 2020 revealed a previously unknown chamber beneath the royal cloister, its walls lined with lead, a material medieval builders used to shield volatile substances or, some speculate, to contain spiritual energy. The monastery's current keepers rarely speak of it, but night guards tell of a peculiar acoustical phenomenon. During certain moon phases, the unfinished chapels resonate with a low hum, as if the stones themselves are sighing over ambitions left unrealized. Perhaps that's the true lesson of Battlehaus depths, that greatness isn't measured only by what we complete, but by the boldness of what we dare to begin. Deep in the Carpathian Basin, where Hungary's Agtelek karst caves twist like a stone labyrinth, the very walls seem to hum with forgotten psalms. These aren't just geological wonders, they're sacred spaces where medieval hermits turned dripping limestone into chapels and stalactites into natural pipe organs. Step away from the tourist paths into caverns where the air hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth and ancient beeswax, and you'll find altars carved straight into the living rock, their surfaces polished smooth by centuries of reverent fingertips. The monks who sought refuge here didn't just endure the darkness, they harnessed it, transforming these subterranean cathedrals into a spiritual instrument unlike any other in Christendom. What makes Agtelek extraordinary is how its natural acoustics shaped worship. The Baradla Dome, a cavern soaring 200 feet overhead, behaves like a colossal resonance chamber. Chant a single note, and the cave multiplies it into a chord that lingers for 18 seconds. Monks discovered certain side passages amplified specific frequencies, creating harmonies when chants were spaced precisely 40 paces apart. Some tunnels even feature scalloped walls, deliberately enhanced with chisels to scatter sound in cascading echoes. This wasn't happenstance, it was acoustic theology, turning the earth itself into a participant in the divine office. Modern sound engineers have measured tones here that match the vibrational frequency of the human soul chakra, though whether by design or accident, we'll never know. Survival in perpetual darkness demanded innovation. The hermits developed a clock of the body, using the rhythmic dripping of mineral-rich water into clay pots to mark canonical hours. They cultivated a unique strain of sightless mushrooms on damp cave walls, their faint bioluminescence providing just enough light to read psalters without attracting outsiders' notice. The most ingenious adaptation might be the writing stones, flat shale tablets coated in cave clay, where monks scratched prayers with sharpened bones. These could be wiped clean and reused, leaving no evidence for raiders to find. Archaeologists recently deciphered faint impressions left in the clay of one such tablet, revealing a previously unknown hymn to Saint Benedict written in Old Hungarian runes. Yet Agtelek's true power lies in its silence. The deepest chambers, like the hermit's cupola, absorb sound so completely that your own heartbeat becomes deafening. Here, monks practiced darkness contemplation, a meditation technique where extended isolation caused visions to bloom behind closed eyelids. The walls bear witness thousands of tiny crosses etched at shoulder height, marking where hands groped for orientation in the void. In one secluded niche, researchers found a circle of smooth stones arranged around a central depression, still holding traces of myrrh and honey, perhaps the simplest of altars, where the divine needed no adornment but the earth's own embrace. Today, these caves guard their mysteries closely. Laser scans have revealed previously unknown chambers walled off with carefully placed boulders, their contents still untouched. Local lore speaks of a library of roots, where manuscripts were sealed in hollow stalagmites, the slow drip of calcite preserving them like insects in amber. As you emerge, blinking into the daylight, the caves seem to exhale behind you, a reminder that some chapters of history prefer to remain written in stone, waiting for those willing to listen in the dark. The monastery of Jeghard seems to emerge from the mountain itself, its stone walls blending seamlessly with the cliffs, as if nature and faith conspired to hide it from time. But the true wonder lies beyond the sunlit courtyards where shadowy passageways plunge into the heart of the earth, revealing chapels birthed not by human hands alone, but by the mountain's own hidden waters. Step through the unassuming archway near the main church, and the air transforms cool, damp, and alive with the sound of trickling springs that have fed this sacred space for over 800 years. These aren't just caves, they're living sanctuaries where every droplet echoes like a note in a divine symphony. The acoustics here defy explanation. In the chapel of St. Gregory, a single voice becomes a chorus, the sound bouncing off water-smoothed walls in cascading harmonies that linger for nearly 12 seconds. Monks discovered certain niches amplify specific frequencies, stand in one corner and chant a low G, and the entire chamber hums as if the mountain itself is joining the prayer. Modern musicians have tried to replicate the effect with digital reverbs, but nothing matches the organic resonance of these caves, where the very stone seems to remember every hymn ever sung within it. The most sacred chants were reserved for the innermost chamber, accessible only by crawling through a tunnel so narrow it forces even the devout to approach on hands and knees, a physical act of humility before the divine. What makes Jeghard extraordinary isn't just its construction, but its continuity. In the dim light of the Avazan chapel, carved around a natural spring, you'll find grooves worn into the stone floor where generations of priests stood to fill ceremonial vessels. The water never stops flowing, not even in the driest summers, its purity attributed to the blessings of Saint Gregory, the illuminator himself. Nearby, a hidden alcove holds a 13th-century kochkar, an intricately carved cross stone, its pattern still sharp despite centuries of moisture, thanks to a protective layer of beeswax applied annually during a ritual passed down through 30 generations of caretakers. The mountain guards its secrets fiercely. Beyond the main chapels, tunnels twist into darkness, some leading to chambers so secluded they were used only for the most sacred rites. One such space, discovered in 2008, contains a celestial map carved into the ceiling, not the constellations as they appear in the sky, but as described in ancient Armenian texts predicting the Second Coming. The most tantalizing mystery, though, lingers in the vibrations. Place your palm against certain walls during morning prayers, and you'll feel a faint thrumming, as if the mountain is absorbing the chants. Geologists attribute it to underground rivers, the faithful know better. To visit Jeghard is to witness faith sculpted into the bones of the earth. High above, sunlight filters through narrow fissures, casting shifting patterns on frescoes of saints whose eyes seem to follow you through the gloom. The air smells of wet rock and melted candle wax, unchanged since the days when knights and kings came here to be blessed before battle. This isn't a relic of the past, it's a living testament to a tradition that refuses to fade, where every stone, every spring, every echoing chant whispers the same truth. Some holies are too profound for open air and must be sheltered in the quiet heart of the mountain. The grandeur of Westminster Abbey's royal tombs and soaring Gothic arches is legendary, but beneath the feet of thousands of daily visitors, the earth holds whispers of a far more clandestine history. Descend the worn stone steps near the chapter house, and the air thickens with the weight of centuries, the walls narrowing into a shadowy web of crypts and tunnels that once pulsed with the secret life of the abbey. These aren't mere storage vaults, they're a hidden chronicle of England's turbulent soul, where faith and survival intertwined in the darkest hours of religious strife. The oldest crypts date back to Edward the Confessor's original abbey, their rough Saxon masonry stark against the polished marble of later additions. Here, in the so-called Pyx chamber, monks once guarded the royal treasury behind walls 3 feet thick, but the real treasure lay hidden beneath the floor. During Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries, abbots bricked up a recess containing illuminated psalters and silver reliquaries, their location known only by a coded engraving on a ceiling beam. Centuries later, restorers found the cache intact, the velvet-wrapped manuscripts still smelling faintly of lavender, pressed between the pages to deter moths. But Westminster's underground truly came alive during England's Reformation. A labyrinth of priest holes and escape tunnels snakes beneath the cloisters, some leading all the way to the Thames. The most ingenious is the Whispering Passage, a curved corridor near Poets' Corner where voices carry with uncanny clarity, perfect for relaying warnings during raids. In 1679, this very tunnel saved a group of Jesuit priests from arrest, their escape masked by the choir rehearsing overhead. The walls still bear their hasty graffiti, a small cross scratched beside a musical staff, the notes matching the melody of God Save the King as a sardonic farewell. Modern technology has peeled back even deeper layers. Ground-penetrating radar scans in 2018 revealed anomalies beneath the Lady Chapel, possible voids matching descriptions of a lost scriptorium where monks copied banned Catholic texts during Elizabethan purges. Thermal imaging shows peculiar heat patterns along the south transept wall, hinting at concealed chambers warmed by ancient pipes or perhaps the body heat of those who once hid within them. The Abbey's archivists recently deciphered a 14th-century ledger referencing a lower sanctuary, accessible only through the tomb of an unnamed bishop, its contents described simply as the Ark of Our Endurance. What lingers most isn't the intrigue, but the intimacy. In a dim alcove off the cloister crypt, the stone bears the knee-worn smoothness of generations of clandestine prayer. Nearby, a single rusted hinge hangs from a door jamb, all that remains of a cupboard where vestments were stored during secret masses. The air carries the faintest trace of myrrh, though no incense has burned here since the 17th century. Westminster's hidden depths remind us that survival often happens in shadows, where the light of faith flickers quietly but refuses to die. The Abbey may crown kings and poets in sunlight, but its truest legacy is written in the cool, silent dark beneath the flagstones. Hidden beneath the vibrant frescoes and onion domes of Bulgaria's Rila Monastery, a silent network of tunnels winds through the earth like roots of an ancient tree, proof that faith often thrives deepest when forced underground. While not a sprawling city like Derinkuyu, these secret passages form a labyrinth of spiritual defiance, carved out by monks who refuse to let conquest extinguish their light. The moment you step away from the sunlit courtyard into one of these shadowed corridors, the air changes damp and cool, carrying the faintest trace of beeswax from candles burned centuries ago. The walls here aren't just stone, they're parchment. Generations of monks left their marks in cryptic graffiti, crosses scratched with knife points, Cyrillic prayers etched in haste, and even musical notations for hymns sung in whispers during Ottoman raids. One particularly poignant inscription near a hidden chapel reads simply, "Be oger ya snas, God is with us," carved by a trembling hand in 1683, the year the monastery was nearly torched. What makes Rila's underground extraordinary isn't just its role as a hideout, but its dual existence as a living archive. The treasury chamber, concealed behind a false wall in the bakery cellar, once held gospels bound in silver and relics of Saint Ivan of Rila, the monastery's patron. But the real treasure was knowledge. Monks smuggled quills and vellum through these tunnels, copying liturgical texts in candlelit niches to preserve Bulgarian language and culture during Ottoman suppression. Some of these manuscripts still bear water stains from the nearby Rilska River, where scribes would soak leather covers to muffle the sound of turning pages. The most ingenious hiding spot, a hollowed-out wine barrel in the cellar, its false bottom concealing a 14th century psalter now displayed in Sofia's National Museum. The tunnels also reveal the monks' strategic brilliance. Passive ventilation shafts disguised as natural fissures prevented candle smoke from betraying their nighttime activities. A concealed hatch beneath the refectory table led to a granary stocked with enough barley and dried plums to sustain the community for months. But the most haunting feature is the echo corridor, a narrow passage where whispered warnings could travel from the watchtower to the deepest crypt in seconds. Modern acoustic studies show its walls were deliberately angled to amplify specific frequencies, likely coded alerts like the drop of a pebble or the scrape of a sandal. Today, restoration work continues to unveil Rila's secrets. Ground-penetrating radar recently revealed an uncharted chamber beneath the Hrelio Tower, its walls lined with lead to block moisture and perhaps prying eyes. Local historians believe it may hold the fabled Golden Gospel, a lost manuscript rumored to have been smuggled here from Constantinople. But for all its mysteries, Rila's true power lies in its unbroken continuity. Descend to the crypt at dawn, and you might catch the scent of fresh bread mingling with ancient stone, a reminder that these tunnels were never just about survival. They were the quiet, stubborn pulse of a faith that refused to be silenced, beating steadily beneath the boots of empires. These hidden worlds beneath monasteries are more than just architectural marvels, they're living testaments to the unbreakable human spirit. Each tunnel, each fresco smuggled crypt, each ingeniously disguised ventilation shaft tells a story of devotion so fierce it could carve sanctuaries from solid rock. Consider the sheer audacity of monks in Cappadocia engineering entire cities beneath their feet, or the scribes of Rila Monastery preserving their culture, one painstakingly copied manuscript at a time. These weren't acts of desperation, but of defiance, proof that faith could flourish even when forced underground. What's truly remarkable is how these spaces evolved beyond mere survival. The acoustically perfect chapels of Jeghod, the celestial maps in Armenian caves, the wine-stained cellars of Poblet, they reveal communities that didn't just hide, but created beauty in the darkness. Underground, monastic life took on new dimensions. Prayer became whispers echoing through stone, scripture was etched into clay tablets, and time itself was measured by the slow drip of mineral-rich water. These adaptations speak to something profound, that when stripped of grand cathedrals and public rituals, faith distilled itself into its purest, most resilient form. Yet mysteries still coil through these tunnels like unspooled scrolls. Why did the monks of Ellora carve chambers tuned to specific sound frequencies? What lies behind the lead-lined doors beneath Canterbury, and what sacred knowledge might still sleep in the uncharted passages of Lalibela? Every answer archaeologists uncover only leads to deeper questions, reminding us that history's full story is rarely written in daylight. As modern visitors, we walk these corridors as witnesses to an extraordinary legacy. The knee-worn grooves in prayer niches, the fingernail crosses on cave walls, the hidden wineries that sustained communities, they're all invitations to listen closely. These stones don't just echo with chants from centuries past, they hum with lessons about perseverance, creativity, and the quiet power of conviction. Perhaps that's why these underground sanctuaries still draw us. They remind us that even in our darkest moments, we're capable of carving light from the shadows. Your turn now. Which of these secret worlds resonated most with you? Was it the cliffside cells of Meteora, where hermits meditated suspended between earth and sky, or Derinkuyu's sprawling tunnels, where entire civilizations could vanish beneath their enemies' feet? Drop your thoughts below, and if you've enjoyed unraveling these subterranean mysteries with us, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into history's hidden corners. The past has only begun to share its